hole right here. Slot your thread in underneath the plate like this. And then go through the hole on the other side. So this is where you start to need your tweezers because the space is really small in between. So then we go through this metal plate here. There's 4 holes. You only need to go through one. It doesn't matter which one you go through, just as long as your threads don't cross over one another. So let's say if this thread were going through this hole, and then I took this thread and threaded it through the other one, my threads would be crossing over one another and they would get caught and they would break. But I can just go like that and it's not a problem. So you want to make sure, yeah, that these threads are always running parallel, but never intersecting. And next, go through another one of these holes. And then we just go through one of these little elevated bars. And now we go into here. So I'm going to take my thread from underneath and work my way up to one of these holes. It doesn't matter which one I go through as long as my threads don't cross over one another. Grab it from the other side and then slot it into the same space here. And now we just have to get through the metal plate underneath this plastic. So you're just going to take your thread again. And there's actually a little space in here that you can slot it into. That may make it easier for you to thread. You just had to get it through one of these holes. Come on, thread. And grab it from the other side. Like that. And then slot it underneath here. And we're almost there. We just have to go through these last 2 holes. So we're going to go through this here. And then we're going to slot our thread in between the metal plate. So I can get this out of the way. Open this up and stick my thread inside, like that. And then I just have to go through one last hole. So when you look down here, you're going to see 3 needles. So if you were to thread this with 5 threads, you would have 2 running through the bottom and 3 running through the top. But I'm just going to show you how to use it with 3 threads because that's how this machine is most frequently used. So what you're going to want to do then is you're going to ignore the middle needle and only thread the 2 side needles. If you thread the middle needle and a side needle, it's not going to work. It'll just sew little loops that come straight out. But if you thread the 2 side needles, it works just fine. So then we just have to go through this little hole here and then go through our needle. And again, we're threading from front to back. Trim this. And this, you want to kind of space it out. So you have these two threads right next to each other because they're running parallel. And then you'll leave these ones empty and thread this one for the bottom. So we're going to go through the top. We're going to go through this, same as before. Go through one. Go through another. And then same as before here, we're going to go towards the end of this now. Go through one, go through another. And now we're going to thread through here. But basically all you're doing is running your thread downwards. So you're going to pick one of these holes. I'm going to pick the one that's outermost because I picked this slot that was outermost. Go through this hole, this hole. You don't have to loop it around or anything. And now we're going to go through this bottom spindle. Same as before. Just threading through the metal plate on the side and then sliding it under the wheel. And then you slide it in here like this. And then you go through the hole on the side. And now we get to open this back. So you open this, and you open this, and then you will move this out of the way later. So the first thing that we're gonna do is we're gonna go through this hole right here that shows up as soon as you open this. So you'll go in between these two metal plates, and from front to back, you're gonna thread this guy. And now we can start going through here. So one of the first steps some people go through this first hole and then go through this slot, but I find that that can cause thread to break a lot. So I usually skip these two first steps. So I'm not gonna go through this metal plate and I'm not gonna go through this hole because usually that causes unnecessary tension. I'm gonna start by going through this hole right here and then going through here and then going through there. You'll see what I mean in a second. gone through my first hole. And now I have these metal bars here. So if you look at these metal bars, up at the top, there's a very big space that makes it easier for you to thread it. So I'm just gonna thread through the big space and then it'll slide its way down. Like that. So now this is in between those slots, and when I move this, this is going to help me with my stitching. So next, I just have to go through the hole on the other side. So it's the same as this. You've got a hole right before you go in between, and then you've got a hole on the other side that you have to go through. I'm not a huge fan of this guy. It's hard to get to. There we go. So now we just have a few more holes to go through. So there's these two right here. So you're going to start from one, go to the other. Not a huge fan of these machines that open up this way. Some of them open up this way, but these always get in the way too. Yeah, I really wish that this was not here. There we go. And now we're just going to go straight over to this one right here. So I'll grab onto my thread right at the end. There we go. And now we can just go through our sliding needle. So this is when we have to move this out of the way to see what's happening. So there's two holes that we have to go through on this needle. There's a hole at the tip, and then there's a hole at the end. So basically what we're doing is we're sliding our thread through this long hole that's going to open up over here. So it starts here, and then it opens back up right here. So you have to kind of push your thread through until it pops out the other side. And then it goes through this little groove and into this hole from front to back. So I'll show you how that works. So I've got my thread here. And it seems kind of weird, but you're really just going to kind of push your thread through a hole in the back of the needle here. And it should pop out the other side like that. So if you look really closely, there's a tiny hole right here in the back, and then there's another space that the thread will pop out of over here, like that. And now we just have to thread our needle. So first I have to get the old thread out in order to put the new thread in. Give me 1 second. There we go. Again, we're threading this from front to back. Just going through this tiny hole at the end. I can pick it up from the other side, like that. And the thread will just fall into that groove right here, so it's just running along the edge of the needle, like that. And now, I'm ready to go.
Where you put the thread after you open this.
After I
Open this.
Okay, so there's a needle right here. Do you see what's moving? Okay, you're right. So it goes in through the back of this here, and then it goes through here, and then it goes through this hole from front to back like this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, what about the yellow threads?
So the yellow threads are all on the top. So they go through here, they go through here, they go through here. And I'm going to sew it face up. And when you're pressing it back, you don't necessarily have to worry too much about how much you're pressing back. You just have to pay attention to how far away from the edge you want your hem stitch to be. So on a typical t-shirt, it's usually lined up. Oh, and by the way, with most machines, you have that slidey thing with your leg that will put the foot up. With this one, it's a lever right here. So it's kind of like driving a car. This will lift up the lever, and this will make it go. So I want there to be like a little space underneath. So I'm just gonna line my edge up so that there's maybe like 1/4 of an inch of space from the foot. And start sewing. Separate this like that. Okay.
Do you have to do that?
Place my trim on top of my garment like this. And sew the two pieces together first. do it right on the edge. Take that. And I'm gonna take my waste fabric and start to feed it through the machine. So now it looks like this. It's two pieces joined together from the inside. So now I'm gonna go over to the iron. And this is gonna basically end up looking like bias binding, but made out of knit. And then you roll this to the other side, and you press it back, like this. So from the outside, it looks like that. And from the inside, it looks like that. Now we're gonna go over to our machine. And I'm going to now very closely pay attention to where I'm lining up this edge, because that's my sewn edge. And that means that that's the edge of this, and I want this to completely cover anything that's going on inside. So I'm lining this up with this groove right here in this foot, because that's gonna tell me that that is going right up against this needle, but not past it, because I still want all of my stitching to be on my binding. And I'm just gonna continue to line it up with that. So depending on what type of knit fabric you use, sometimes you'll experience